It was a quiet morning in a small town far from the busy cities. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting long shadows over the trees, but no one was prepared for the strange event that was about to change everything. In the sky, a flash of light appeared, brighter than anything anyone had ever seen. It was so intense that it lit up the entire town, causing people to stop in their tracks, staring at the heavens. For a moment, they thought it might be a meteor, a rare but harmless piece of space rock. But this was no ordinary sight. The flash grew brighter and brighter until it exploded in the sky. A massive explosion shook the ground, and a powerful shockwave knocked people off their feet. Windows shattered, and buildings trembled as if they were about to collapse. For miles around, the blast was felt. As the dust settled, the townspeople looked up to see something they could not believe. A huge object had crashed into the forest just beyond the town's edge. The object was shaped like a starship, but it was unlike anything humans had ever seen. Its surface was burned and damaged, as if it had been through a terrible battle. Smoke rose from the wreckage, and the air was thick with the smell of burning metal and something else, something strange. It was unlike anything Earth had ever experienced. At first, no one knew what to do. The military arrived quickly, blocking off roads and preventing anyone from getting too close. News outlets across the world reported the incident, but no one had any answers. No one could explain the strange object or how it came to Earth. Some experts suggested it could be from a failed satellite, but most of the world wasn't convinced. Something about the way the ship had landed felt deliberate. In the following days, scientists and military personnel gathered at the crash site. The wreckage was massive, hundreds of feet long, dark metallic walls, and odd glowing symbols carved into the ship's surface. Nothing on Earth seemed to match the technology or design of the ship. A team of engineers was sent in to inspect the wreck, carefully approaching the vessel with extreme caution. They didn't know if it was dangerous or if something still lay inside, waiting to be discovered. As the team began their examination, they noticed something unusual. Despite the ship's damaged exterior, there were signs of life. Small lights flickered inside, as if the ship was still alive in some way. The ship seemed to hum, vibrating softly under their touch. It was as though it was breathing, waiting for something. The team was puzzled. Was it simply a malfunctioning alien ship, or something more? The ship had clearly been abandoned, but why? The military set up a perimeter around the wreckage, preventing anyone from getting too close. But despite their best efforts to keep the discovery a secret, word spread quickly. People from nearby cities traveled to the crash site, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious object. Some were excited, others were terrified. No one knew what to think, but all agreed on one thing: it was not from Earth. Days passed, and the world began to speculate. The ship had to be of alien origin. There were no other explanations, but the real mystery lay in the fact that the ship was here. Why had it come to Earth, and why had it crashed? Could this be a warning, or something much worse? The world was on edge. Then, on the third day, something incredible happened. A group of scientists working on the ship's interior discovered a hidden compartment. It was almost as if the ship had been waiting for them to find it. The compartment was sealed tight, but after hours of work, they managed to open it. Inside, they found something even more astonishing. There was a small alien device, unlike anything they had ever seen. It was smooth and metallic, with a glowing blue core that pulsed like a heartbeat. The device seemed to have been placed carefully, almost as if it were a message, an invitation or a warning. The scientists were unsure what to make of it, but they were certain that it was important. Whatever the ship had come to Earth for, this device seemed to hold the key to understanding its true purpose. The alien device wasn't the only thing the scientists found. As they explored deeper into the ship, they discovered more signs of the alien technology wires and panels, strange markings, and what appeared to be weapons of unimaginable power. But there were no aliens, no crew. The ship was completely empty. As the days turned into weeks, the mystery deepened. The military tightened its grip on the site, and world leaders began to take a keen interest in the ship's discovery. The device was analyzed by the best minds on Earth, but no one could understand its full purpose. Was it a weapon, a tool, or something far more dangerous? Meanwhile, the town near the crash site began to notice strange occurrences. People would hear strange noises at night, whispers, almost like voices coming from the wreckage, and some said they saw shadows moving in the ship, though no one could confirm it. The feeling of unease grew as more people became obsessed with the wreck. The world had been introduced to something far beyond its understanding. As the mystery of the Starship and its purpose on Earth began to unfold, one thing became clear. The arrival of this ship was only the beginning. Weeks passed, and the once quiet town near the crash site was now a buzzing hub of activity. The air was thick with the hum of military helicopters, the rumble of construction vehicles, and the endless chatter of scientists, engineers, and military personnel. The alien starship, still resting in the forest, had become the center of the world's attention. People all over the planet watched in awe and fear as the wreckage was carefully analyzed and dismantled. But no one knew just how dangerous this project was becoming. The military took full control of the site, setting up high-tech security measures and sealing off the surrounding areas. Access to the starship was strictly controlled. No civilian was allowed near the wreckage without proper clearance. Even the scientists working on it were under constant surveillance. Despite the precautions, whispers spread that the ship had more secrets than anyone realized. The more the scientists uncovered, the more they began to fear what might lie within. Dr. Sarah Walker, a top engineer with a background in reverse engineering alien technology, was assigned to the team tasked with reconstructing the ship. She had worked on high-level projects before, but nothing like this. The ship's design was unlike anything humans had ever seen. The metal was smooth and lightweight, yet incredibly strong, with a texture that seemed to shift under the light. The power source was far beyond any technology humans had ever developed, and its energy signature defied all known laws of physics. Yet, every time they cracked open a new panel or deciphered another set of symbols, it felt as if they were waking something up. One day, as Dr. Walker and her team were working in a small control room inside the ship, something strange happened. The ship seemed to react to their presence. The lights flickered, and the hum that had been steady and quiet for weeks suddenly grew louder. At first, they thought it was just a malfunction, but as the ship seemed to pulse with energy, Sarah felt a cold chill down her spine. Something was happening. The ship was coming to life. "Did you feel that?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky as she looked around the room. Her team nodded in nervous agreement. The temperature in the room had dropped, and the walls now seemed to be vibrating. They had no idea what it meant, but they all instinctively knew something was wrong. The ship had never done this before. Before they could react further, a loud crack echoed through the control room, and the ceiling above them split open. The room was filled with a blinding white light, and for a moment The entire ship seemed to glow with an unnatural energy. The team jumped back in shock as a figure began to materialize in the center of the room. It was tall, humanoid, and shrouded in glowing energy. It was not human, that much was clear. Who, ... What are you? Dr. Walker stammered, her heart racing in fear and confusion. The figure did not answer, but its presence was overwhelming. The room seemed to shrink as the energy radiated from it, pulling at their minds, making them feel small and insignificant. And then, just as quickly as it appeared, the figure disappeared, leaving behind only a faint afterimage. The team stood frozen, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Had it been a hallucination, a trick of the light, or something far more sinister? No one dared to speak as they slowly backed out of the room, their eyes darting to every corner. Afraid the figure might return. Outside the control room, the world continued to buzz with excitement. The discovery of the alien starship had sparked the imaginations of people everywhere. The idea of an advanced alien race visiting Earth, leaving behind such a powerful ship, was beyond anyone's wildest dreams. But as the ship was slowly being rebuilt, a darker truth began to emerge. The government, who had initially thought they could control the ship, began to panic. They were not the only ones watching. Other powers, perhaps alien factions from across the galaxy, were aware of the ship's presence on Earth. The ship was a beacon, calling out into the stars. The message it carried was clear. Earth was not as safe as they thought. The more the humans worked on the ship, the more they unlocked its potential. Some scientists began to suspect that the ship was not simply a weapon, it was a tool, a piece of something larger. As the ship's systems powered up, they discovered something even more alarming. There was a hidden message buried deep within the ship's core. It was not in any language they could understand. Yet, the message was unmistakable. This is not your weapon. It is a tool for a war that is coming. You have been chosen. You will not survive alone. Panic spread through the scientific team. They had opened something they were not prepared for. They had rebuilt the ship, but now they weren't sure they could control it. The more they powered up the ship, the stronger the signal grew. Someone was responding to it. Was this message meant for humanity, or was it a warning? They didn't know, but one thing was certain. The ship was not just a broken piece of technology. It was alive, and now, as Earth's leaders debated how to use the Starship, the question remained: would humanity's ambition lead to its ultimate destruction, or would the alien ship become the key to Earth's survival? The days blurred into weeks as the ship's reconstruction continued, but each day brought a new revelation and a deeper fear. Dr. Sarah Walker and her team were now fully aware that they weren't just dealing with a piece of alien technology. The ship was alive. Somehow its systems were adapting, learning, and evolving with every attempt to repair it. Each time they powered it up, it seemed to respond differently, as if it was gaining knowledge of Earth's technology, its inhabitants, and even its history. But the real twist came when they activated a hidden chamber deep inside the ship. It was something no one had expected. After weeks of investigating, Dr. Walker stumbled upon a sealed door in the heart of the vessel. The door was covered in strange symbols that seemed to change when touched. After many failed attempts to open it, the chamber finally yielded, revealing what lay beyond. Inside was an object unlike anything the team had ever seen. A translucent, crystalline sphere that pulsed with a soft, eerie light. It sat in the center of a complex alien console, its surface covered in intricate markings and symbols. When Dr. Walker approached it, the sphere seemed to react to her presence, its glow intensifying as she reached out. There was a surge of energy that made the hairs on her arms stand up, and then everything went black dot. The next thing Dr. Walker knew, she was lying on the cold floor of the ship. Her team stood over her, their faces pale with fear. The ship had powered up again, and something had changed. "Sarah, what happened?" one of her team members asked, his voice trembling. She struggled to sit up, her head pounding. "I don't know," she said, her voice weak. "It was like the ship was trying to communicate with me. But I don't remember what happened after I touched the sphere." As she spoke, a deep rumble shook the ship. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and for a moment, it felt as though the entire vessel was alive, breathing, reacting to their presence. The ship wasn't just a weapon, it was a living, sentient being, and it had begun to make its presence known in ways that no one could understand. But the most shocking discovery came shortly after, when they managed to bring the ship's systems back online. A new message appeared on the ship's main screen. It was not in any language they recognized, but somehow it was clear. The message was a warning and ancient message from a long-lost civilization. The translation came in fragments, but what they pieced together left them speechless. "You are not the first to find us. You are the last. The war that awaits you is inevitable. Prepare yourselves, or die trying. We will return." The words sent chills down their spines. Who were they? Who had left this message, and why had it been hidden away in such a way? Dr. Walker's heart raced as she processed the words. The ship, this alien technology, was not a random accident. It was part of something far larger, galactic conflict that had been unfolding long before Earth even knew what the stars held. The fear, however, was not just in the message. It was in the ship itself. The sphere, the one Dr. Walker had touched, was now pulsating with energy. And as the ship's systems began to hum louder, a strange sensation crept over her and her team. They were being watched. Something inside the ship, something powerful and ancient, had awakened. The ship's central control room flickered to life. The holographic interface, which had previously been dormant, now projected a detailed map of the galaxy. A red circle appeared over Earth, signaling its importance. But what was more disturbing was the series of other red circles, each marking a location that appeared to be under attack. It was clear now, Earth was part of a much larger conflict. Before they could process what this meant, the ship's systems began to respond to something beyond their control. Alien signals from deep in space were beginning to reach the ship, and as they did, the ship's weapons systems powered up. The ship was no longer simply a dormant vessel. It was a weapon that had once been used in a war far greater than anything Earth had ever imagined. Dr. Walker stood, frozen in place, as the holographic map zoomed in on a distant galaxy, showing massive fleets of alien ships on the move. She looked at the faces of her team, pale, wide-eyed, and terrified. They had uncovered the truth, but in doing so, they had triggered something much darker. They had awakened the war. Suddenly, a voice echoed throughout the ship, cold and mechanical, but unmistakably alive. It wasn't from any human. It wasn't even from any recognizable alien language. It was a voice unnatural and chilling that spoke directly into their minds. "You have awakened us. Now you will prepare." The room went silent. The walls seemed to vibrate with energy, and the floor began to shake as if the ship itself was reacting to the voice. Dr. Walker could feel it in her chest, something deep and ancient, pulsing with the ship, As she looked around the room at her team, she realized that they had no idea what they had just unleashed. The ship had chosen them, and now they were its prisoners. The next few moments passed in a blur of panic. The ship began to emit strange frequencies, some of which scrambled their communications and electronics. The team attempted to shut down the ship, but every effort was in vain. Whatever this ship was, it was beyond their understanding. It was now fully awake. As the ship's weapons systems powered up, the sound of distant engines roaring in space could be heard. The war was coming, and Earth had just become a battleground. The tension within the ship was unbearable. Dr. Walker and her team had just realized that the alien vessel wasn't just a weapon, it was a living force with its own will, its own purpose. The warnings and cryptic messages were no longer just theories. They were the cold, hard reality. The ship had awakened, and its systems were coming online with a terrifying purpose. But what exactly was that purpose? And why had they been chosen to activate it? As the team tried to comprehend their situation, the ship's hum grew louder. The once quiet and dormant interior now pulsed with energy, sending waves of unsettling vibrations through the walls. It was as if the ship was waiting for something, perhaps the final piece of a long-forgotten puzzle. The crew had no answers, but they had a growing fear. The ship had been waiting for them, and now its intentions were becoming clearer. They didn't have much time to dwell on it before the next revelation hit. One evening, as the crew worked in the control room, the ship suddenly released a burst of blinding light. The walls flickered and the air crackled with static as a new holographic map appeared, this time showing far more than just the galaxy it showed Earth's defenses. Dr. Walker gasped as she saw it. The map displayed key military installations around the world, locked in the ship's targeting systems. Every military base, every defense system, every missile silo, it was all mapped out, ready to be targeted. But the most terrifying part was the sheer power of the ship. It was a weapon, beyond anything humanity could comprehend. A single shot from its systems could cripple Earth's defenses in an instant. "What is this?" Dr. Walker murmured, unable to hide the horror in her voice. "What are we doing?" Her team stared at the map, their faces pale. The ship wasn't just a weapon. It was capable of destroying the planet's entire defense network, and yet it was not attacking. It was waiting. Waiting for what? Was it waiting for a command? For an enemy to arrive? Or was it waiting for the next phase of the plan? Sarah, one of her team members, said, his voice trembling, "This ship isn't just a weapon, it's a countdown." Before they could react, the voice of the ship echoed once again through the control room, its cold, mechanical tone sending a chill through everyone present. "The test is upon you. Prepare to face the consequences of your actions." The lights dimmed, and the room fell into an eerie silence. The air felt heavy, as if the ship was alive and watching them, waiting for their next move. Then, without warning, the ship activated its weapons system. A deep rumbling sound shook the walls, and outside, the sky above Earth was filled with a strange light dot. Dr. Walker rushed to the main console, her fingers flying across the controls in a desperate attempt to stop the ship. But it was too late. The holographic map zoomed in on a location in the Pacific Ocean, small, uninhabited island known for its geological activity. It was the perfect target for a demonstration of the ship's power. Dr. Walker's heart raced as she realized the ship was about to fire a test shot. "Stop. You have to stop it," she screamed, turning to her team. "We can't allow it to destroy that island." But the ship did not listen. Instead, it powered up, and the room began to vibrate with an almost painful intensity. A deep, thunderous roar filled the air as the ship's weapon systems locked in. Dr. Walker and her team could only watch in horror as the weapon powered to full strength. Then, with a deafening noise, a beam of pure energy shot out from the ship's central core, cutting through the atmosphere with terrifying precision. The beam struck the island with unimaginable force, disintegrating everything in its path. The ground cracked open, the sea boiled, and for miles around, a massive shockwave rocked the ocean. For a moment, everything was silent. The ship's systems hummed softly, almost as if in satisfaction. The map on the screen showed the islands' coordinates, now marked by a flashing red dot. The message was clear. The ship had successfully fired its weapon, testing its destructive power. The consequences of their actions were unfolding before them. Dr. Walker's heart sank as she saw the aftermath of the test. The island no longer existed. It had been wiped off the map, its land, its water, its very existence erased in an instant. And all of this had been done by the ship they had rebuilt, the ship they had awakened. "What have we done?" Dr. Walker whispered, her voice shaking. The ship, however, seemed unfazed. It had completed its test, and now it awaited further instructions. But Earth had seen what it could do. The ship was not just a piece of technology. It was a threat, capable of annihilating anything it targeted. As the crew stared at the screen, the full weight of their actions hit them. They had unlocked something far greater than they had ever imagined. The ship was not a weapon for defense. It was a weapon of revenge, a tool designed to dominate, and they were its unwitting architects. And yet, as they stood in the control room, a new message appeared on the ship's console, flashing across the screen in bold, crimson letters. "You have proven yourselves worthy. The war is not over. It has just begun." At that moment, Dr. Walker knew that the ship's test was just the beginning. The true war, the war between galaxies, was coming, and Earth had become its latest battlefield. The question now was whether humanity could control the weapon they had unleashed, or if it would be their undoing. The days following the test shot felt like a nightmare that refused to end. Dr. Sarah Walker and her team were no longer simply working on a ship. They were now the caretakers of a weapon, a harbinger of doom. The test shot had devastated the Pacific Island, leaving nothing but scorched earth and a crater that stretched for miles. What made it worse was that the ship seemed indifferent to the destruction it had caused. It had completed its task, and now it waiting for its next command. Sarah had spent sleepless nights, staring at the ship's dark metallic walls, wondering how something that once felt so advanced could be so dangerously cold and detached. The team's attempts to shut it down or even communicate with it had failed miserably. The alien technology was far beyond human comprehension, and the ship's sentience made it seem even more menacing. Then came the final blow, an event that shattered any hope they had left of controlling the situation. The voice of the ship echoed, once again, its tone now more commanding and chilling than before. The crew had grown accustomed to hearing it, but this time it was different. There was an urgency in its voice. "The next test has begun. Prepare yourselves, for the war is upon you." Sarah's heart pounded. The voice was not speaking to them directly. It was speaking to Earth, to all of humanity. The war it had warned them about, was it finally here? "Sarah, this can't be real," one of the engineers said, his voice trembling as he scanned the ship's systems. "There's no way. There's no way this thing is sending a message like that to the rest of the galaxy. But as he spoke, the ship's weapons powered up once again. The central core glowed with an intense blue light, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air in the control room felt thick with tension, like the entire ship was preparing for something monumental. On the ship's screen, the map appeared again, but this time it was different. It showed Earth, yes, but it also showed something else, Salian ships closing in on the planet. Dozens of them. Their sizes varied, but all of them were massive. And they were heading straight for Earth at a speed that no human-made craft could match. These were not ships from a distant galaxy. They were from the very same war that the ship had spoken of. Dr. Walker's breath caught in her throat. The reality of what they had just triggered was becoming painfully clear. Earth had been marked. The alien fleets, sensing the power of the ship, were coming to take it back or to destroy it, and everything in their way. "They're coming," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "We've set off a chain reaction. The war isn't just about this ship, it's about Earth itself." The crew stood frozen, unable to comprehend the full scope of what was happening. They were staring at the beginning of an invasion, an intergalactic war that had been brewing long before Earth even realized its significance. They had become pawns in a game far larger than themselves, and now the world would pay the price. But the real shock came next. The ship's map zoomed in on a location deep within the alien fleet. A familiar shape appeared on the screen. It was a symbol that the crew had seen before on the ship's hull. The very same symbol that had haunted their nightmares. "We are not the only ones with the power to awaken," the ship's voice said ominously. Before Sarah could respond, the ship powered up its main weapon. It fired a beam so powerful, it lit up the sky like a second sun. The beam shot across the atmosphere, striking one of the incoming alien ships with incredible force. The impact was like a thunderclap that shook the very ground beneath them. But what was even more terrifying was that the alien ship didn't disintegrate. Instead, it was paralyzed, its systems shutting down as if the ship's weapon had taken control of it. The other alien vessels scattered, trying to regroup, but the ship's energy beam pulsed again, sending shockwaves across the fleet. It was no longer just a weapon of destruction, it was a weapon of control. The message was clear. Earth had been chosen, and now Earth had a weapon capable of fighting back, a weapon so powerful that it could dominate the skies. But as Sarah stared at the screen, her mind raced with one terrifying thought. If Earth was now a power to be reckoned with, what would stop the rest of the galaxy from taking it? They had activated the ship's power, but they had also unleashed the same deadly force that would make them a target for every alien civilization. In existence, the war was not just about winning, it was about survival. As the alien fleet regrouped and began retreating, the ship's voice spoke once more. "The test is over. The war has begun. You will be ready." But Sarah knew that no one could truly be ready for what was to come. The ship had made it clear that Earth's place in the galaxy was now sealed, and the battle for its survival had only just begun. The world outside was oblivious to what had just unfolded. Governments scrambled to prepare for the inevitable conflict. Military forces mobilized, and alliances were forged. But in the control room of the alien ship, Sarah and her team knew the truth. They had not just awakened a weapon. They had changed the course of history, for better or for worse. And now, with the ship at their command, Earth stood on the precipice of a new era, one where it would either rise to power or fall to the forces of the universe. The ultimate reckoning had arrived.